Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and the time has come for us to break our silence on the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. God, I hate that name. We can talk about that. The Dorinda Berkshire's Housewives Girls Trip, I wanted to wait until the entire thing has aired, and there's no one better to join me in breaking down the psychoanalysis of this haunted house of horrors. It is Jamie Stein. He is the empath and intuitive to the Housewives, to the Real Worlders. He worked on the Real World. What can't he do? Welcome back, Jamie Stein.
How does he do it? Thank you, Jess.
How does he do it? I think up top, maybe let's first address Tamra's return to OC, because there's something very specific that I want to feel into with you. So did you watch the big announcement on when Tamra came back to Watch What Happens Live that second night?
I saw the clip of her walking in and reclaiming her orange.
Yes. You know that I haven't seen too much of OC. That is like really even overstating it, having not seen that much of it. But I do really, really love Tamra. And watching her just jump up and down, like the exuberance that we saw in her coming back to OC, I found it to be a little sad and embarrassing. And so I'm trying to figure out, from your perspective, why is she so excited to be back on the show? Is it money, like, okay, I was fired from my job and now I can pay my mortgage? That would make the most sense. Is it fame? Is it attention? Is it a combination of all three? Like, why do you think these women are so desperate to get back on the shows?
I mean, it's an interesting question, and obviously I think it's going to be different for each one, although, of course, there will also be overlap. I mean, I think before I even get into your question, I want to say I, too, was really struck by her unbridled enthusiasm. Not necessarily in an unpleasant way, but I noticed it. And you know, I'm a Tamara fan, so I love Tamara. She's generally pretty forthright about who she is, what's going on with her. And for me, I was like, this almost feels like another turning point in how meta these shows are getting, that this feels like the first time where, first of all, we're so, what's the right word, like far in the evolution of Housewives now that we're in this new era of women getting fired and then women getting hired back, right? And I feel like this is the first time, though, that someone's made a return or been invited back to the show where she's just throwing aside all pretense of being cool, calm, and collected about it. It's not like she made some announcement saying, you know what, it felt like the time was right because my kids are older or this or that. Like, everyone, including Andy, including Watch What Happens Live, including the audience, we're all acknowledging the mechanics of the show, which was that she was fired. She wanted to come back. She got her orange back, which is what so many of these ex-housewives want. And she's celebrating and we're celebrating with her. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge how meta it is at this point. Like, we're acknowledging the wheels turning behind the curtain, right? And so, yeah, to your point, I was really taking in Tamra's excitement and was kind of a few minds about it. I mean, part of me loves seeing her own it. It's like she's throwing aside any pretense. And so it's like, okay, great, you're being real. You want it back on the show. And she's talked about it on the podcast, Two Teas in a Pod.
Jamie's favorite podcast is Two Teas in a Pod.
I don't know if I'd call my favorite podcast, but
Two Teas in a Pod, whose shitty audio rivals some of the best of them out there. I mean, and you said to me yesterday, I was like joking about this over text, and you're like, yeah, and how Teddy is like screaming. It's like, where are the producers? Like, they can't get them a good mic. Like, what is the problem?
Well, and it's crazy because it is produced or distributed, I don't know what the right word is, by Iheart Radio. So you'd think they'd get set up with some sort of, you know,
equipment.
Yeah, like some sort of tutorial, someone to come in and say, okay, we're going to even out your levels, even in post, you know what I mean? Just to like somehow make it more professional. But I kind of like how cobbled together it is. That's part of the charm of it for me. It's like, as far as what's bringing her back, I mean, no, do I think Tamara needs this to pay her mortgage. No, this is part of what I like about her. I think that Tamara is actually one of the housewives who's smart with money. I think she lives within her means. I know she has really successful businesses. Venus CBD is really successful. Additionally, I never know what kind of profit her gym is turning, but it's still open after 10 years. So obviously it's turning some kind of profit. So I don't think she needs it for the money. I do think that Tamara is a born reality star. I think she's one of those people who's just great at this. And even just the way that I'm not saying she consciously staged her return, but the way that she unconsciously, semi-consciously staged her return, I really feel like the way that 2 T's in a Pod kind of set her up, and then Ultimate Girls Trip 2 brought her back into consciousness, the way that she's played this the whole time, I feel like in some way she's never stopped playing the reality TV game, even when she's been off the show. So, Teddy made a comment in the last episode where she was like, you were born for this. And I believe that's true. I believe that Tamara, she's a natural born producer. She's a natural born reality star. And she says it, and I believe this is true. I think she was always a good employee. She always knew how to play ball with Bravo and Evolution. She was always grateful for the work. She was grateful for the opportunity. So I think what we're seeing here is someone who really loves her job, who loves the perks that come with it. Yeah, who absolutely loves the income for sure, who loves the life it affords her. Do I feel like she needs the fame on the same level as like a Jill, or maybe we could even say a Dorinda? I don't think so. I think she enjoys it. I don't think she's married to it or desperate for it, but I think she really likes the gig. And I think she wanted it back. It's like I think she got her job back. This is sort of what she knows and loves, and she's good at it. The other thing I'll say before I stop is, always remember her. Well, you didn't watch the show.
I want to get into that. My attitude is shifting toward OC.
We'll talk about it. But, I was just going to say, remember her origin story. I mean, this is a woman who came onto the show truly as a Real Housewife of Orange County. And she was very much, we might not say she was totally a trophy wife, but she was in that kind of archetype. And she was in a marriage where she wasn't seen and heard. So you have to understand, this show really gave her a platform and an opportunity, one, to get away from a shitty marriage, to create successful businesses for herself, to step into more of the truth of who she is, and to love herself. So I think the show's been really good for her, and I think she just wanted to be back, and she's not being shy about saying, I'm back and I'm excited about it.
And what did you make of Jill stealing the thunder? Tamara literally tweeted, "Fuck you, Jill."
Yeah, and then did you hear Tamara's explanation on 2 T's?
Yeah, why don't you summarize it quickly?
Because Jill rebutted Tamara, basically saying, I just read about it in the press. I wasn't trying to spill any secrets or gossip. It was well-intentioned. But then Tamra rebutted that rebuttal and basically said, no, nothing at that point had been printed. And I guess Tamara had told Vicki, and only Vicki, about the news. And then Vicki had gone to an event hosted by Jill, told Jill. And so then Jill announced it, not even on her regular Instagram, but on her, I guess there's now a new private Instagram where people can pay and subscribe.
Yeah, there's a subscription thing within Instagram that'll just go to, like, if you're paying the $10 a month, whatever it is.
So Jill clearly did this within her subscription domain where people have to pay to hear, right, creating this exclusive content. And then on top of that, did it in this way where I forget exactly what she said, but rather than just making it about celebrating Tamra, was somehow like commiserating that Vicki wasn't on the show with her and Vicki should be part of it. So she kind of just like co-opted it, used it for her own attention, and then was also casting it in a negative light.
Yeah, it wasn't celebrating Tamra. It was more like she said something to the effect of like, breaking news, Tamra's back on OC and my friend Vicki is not happy.
Yeah, and I think, Jill has a compulsive need to be in the mix and to be in the middle, right? She just can't sit still with info. She just always feels like a little girl who just can't keep her hands out of the cookie jar. And she's sort of always she's always angling, how can she be in the mix? How can she profit from it? How can she hustle with it? So I think, it's like the old expression, the girl can't help herself. I just think she cannot help herself.
I want to start like super zoomed out general. As a television show, as now that we're looking at it collectively, let's critique the show. On a range from 1 to 10, what would you give this?
Well, I'm a little nervous to say because I think I liked it less than most people. And so I feel like I'm going to like piss people off. I mean, which is not to say I disliked it because I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it like a lot of other people. And we'll get into why. So I would give it a 7, like a 6.5 to a 7.
I agree because the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. When you walk away from the show, you walk away thinking that was amazing. But in watching the episodes, when you look at the way the episodes were constructed, there was so much filler. We had to sit through 10 minutes of making lasagna, field games, the hot air balloon ride, watching them walk around Main Street in Great Barrington, canoeing. This is filler and wasting my time. And now from a production standpoint, I understand that the goal was to create 1 episode per day, but all of that filler was quite boring. And that is the cardinal sin with these shows, is you cannot bore the audience. Like, you would just like have to keep it moving. I actually watched the first 3 episodes with our friend Andy Bellotti, Astrology with Andy, and he said, I'm bored to tears during watching them do the field games. Oh, and you know what? I'll throw in aerobics even in this. Although I'm slightly amused by aerobics, but like not by much. But I remember with the field games, he's like, why are we watching them do field games?
Yeah, I felt like the seams were showing more on this one than the first one. But I felt the first one, first of all, just the setting, like the Turks and Caicos, where there was sort of room to breathe. There was a destination location. It just felt like a trip they might really be taking. And I think also the way that it was cast, even though they weren't all close friends, the spirit and the flavor of them being longstanding OGs, it just felt like a love letter to the entire franchise and to the Housewives universe. And we got a lot of those conversations about what it was like to be a housewife and to be on the show. And so there was something about it that to me just kind of made organic sense. Whereas this one to me just felt, I felt the seams so much more of just, we got to throw together this project, a bunch of kind of tornado chaotic women who are going to be stuck in this house with nothing to do for 8 days. It's like, this is personal preference. It's how you define good TV. I personally don't love conflict that's on the level of, okay, Brandi has too much to drink. She's not making total sense. She says something really provocative. And now another drunk Taylor is really offended. To me, that's just kind of drunk malarkey. I so much prefer seeing stuff. For example, like I feel like Kenya and Cynthia were having a genuine fracture in their friendship on Girls Trip. And I felt like what was happening between Kenya and Ramona was a real clash of personalities. It wasn't just we're drunk. This particular Girls Trip, though, it had its highlights, and I do feel like it got better as it went on, as they formed more of a connection. I just felt the experiment of it all and just how it was like a produced TV show. And it was almost more like, okay, dance, monkey, dance. You're a crazy cast. Go for it. Get drunk. Yell, scream. Oh, this is quote unquote good TV.
I definitely preferred this over the first one, but like I don't even have the energy to like get into. I felt like the highs here were, or maybe like the darkness. Like I'm drawn to the darkness. Like I find that super compelling. Like I think it was episode 5, the one where they bring up Russell's suicide. It kept heightening and heightening and heightening. And when you thought it couldn't heighten anymore, Dorinda brings up like, what if your son died? That episode I thought was one of the best episodes of, I guess we'll just say Housewives, but not one of the best episodes of reality television that I have ever seen, because it truly kept heightening to the point where you were truly shocked as an audience, which is so rare at this point. So for that reason, I like this one better. How did you feel about the house? I mean, Dorinda's so in love with this fucking Bluestone Manor. I mean, you're from New England. What is your vibe on this house of terror? And like, you know, everyone says like, oh, I want to spend a night at Bluestone Manor. This made me not want to spend a night at Bluestone Manor.
Oh, well, I've always felt that way. I mean, no, I get major Overlook Hotel vibes from Bluestone Manor. I'm sure it's a beautiful home in terms of architecture and history. I'm sure the property is beautiful. I personally, I mean, you know, taste is subjective. Personally, I don't think Dorinda has great taste. I'm doing this whole unexpected Roni rewatch. I started with 4, 5, 6, now I'm on 7. So I'm watching Dorinda's first season, and even just seeing her first apartment in Manhattan that she was in that season. I was like, oh my God, I hate the way this is decorated. So, you know, I find her style to be very kind of just overly ornate, kind of mismatched, like a lot of tchotchkes. Oh, and also, don't even get me started on her bedroom. The intense red of her bedroom wall, it gives me so much anxiety.
Wait, what about the fact that she has a television 3 inches from her face?
I was literally about to say that. And then seeing the flat screen TV, huge, literally at the foot of her bed, I was like, no wonder she's so high strung. Her bedroom is like a hotbed of stress and anxiety.
What is the Overlook Hotel? You said it gives you Overlook Hotel vibes. What does that mean?
Oh, from The Shining. That's the hotel in The Shining.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I agree with you. I feel like I have no need, impulse, desire to stay there whatsoever. I'm staying far away. And then even some of the bedrooms. I mean, to be honest, I mean, look, I'm one of those people. I'm a bit of a snob, so I wouldn't exactly be happy if I were on the pull-out couch for 8 days. You know, I don't know. It's this, given that she's, I think, very wealthy and has a lot of money to spend, I have to say it doesn't feel like what I would define as luxury, opulence, or what I would want out of an 8-day luxury trip.
I remember on one episode, I think it was the episode with the fish room, when that became a whole thing on Roni. And remember she said that's $1,000 a night room.
Did she mean it as a hotel or as a novelty Airbnb because she's Dorinda Medley? That is not $1,000 a night room on its own. I am sorry.
I think just given the overall worth of the home.
Oh, I'm saying if I'm spending $1,000, that is not where I'm spending it. That is not where I'm spending it.
Where would you, Jamie Stein, prefer to spend a weekend? At Bluestone Manor or on Fire Island?
Oh, that's tough.
These are your 2 worst nightmares.
Because I've never been there, but it looks so claustrophobic. I mean, it looks like there's so many people in such a small space, right? I mean,
well,
I guess
you can get big houses.
What?
You can get big houses.
Well, so then, yeah, I guess it depends. Like, what's the accommodation on Fire Island? Am I staying in like a house with like 50 other people who are partying all night? Or do I have like a nice little getaway where, you know, I'm around the trees and it's peaceful and quiet?
You can totally have your nice little getaway around the trees, but when you go outside, you are going to, you know, run into people that are going to tea. You will see it's not like a Joshua Tree getaway. Like, you are going to run into hundreds of men, gays.
Then I would say I would choose Fire Island. If I have my place where I can get away and retreat, look, I'm fine to go out and be amongst the people. You know, as long as there's a place where I can go and then hide and recharge. I'm fine with that. I mean, look, am I going to be running around to the circuit parties? Probably not. Well, even that I might probably dip my toe in, but just as long as I have somewhere to go, get away, and reclaim my sanity. Bluestone Manor, it's like there is no escape for Bluestone Manor. You're stuck there. I mean, you're in the House of Horrors with Dorinda. So to me, it's just there's nothing about that screams relaxing or vacation to me.
I want to move on. So, as you know, like, I've never been into OC, but I am telling you, I am actually motivated now. I cannot take my eyes off of Vicky. I love how unpredictable she is. She goes to the hospital to get a steroid shot. I love that Eva doesn't watch any of the shows, and so she's not up on anything. And then you have the contrast of Brandi, who's like a Housewives super fan, who's kind of like filling her in along the way. And I love when one of them asked, maybe it was even Phaedra, was like, they were talking about Brooks and they go, oh, well, like, at least was he good looking? And Brandi immediately shoots back, no.
I do have to say, this made me realize I do like Brandi. You know, as someone who's kind of been on the fence off and on over the years, I was like, I like Brandi. She's funny. She's vulnerable. There's something, even though there are things I don't like about her, for sure, there's something so likable about her to me.
I never liked Brandi at all, ever. Somehow she won me over. Somehow I'm like, how is she the voice of reason here? Like, I think she makes I think that she needs to stop drinking, because when she is sober, she makes complete sense. Like when they do those some of my favorite scenes were when they would flash back to the night before and just kind of show it in like sepia tone, and you'd see Dorinda even more blackout, and Brandi would just come through with these nuggets of wisdom and truth, like saying, Dorinda, if people want to see season 1 and 2 Dorinda, not your excessive drinking, and if you don't stop drinking, you're going to be on pause forever. It happened to me, and that just the self-awareness. I love Brandi.
Yeah, I think I do believe her. I think she's chilled out some. She's a mischievous, playful, funny, rebellious woman, and I think when it's working, when it's at its sort of most charming, it's very, very charming. Obviously, like Dorinda, the energy can shift and then it becomes something different, and then it sort of takes the night hostage.
Tamra revealing that Denise Richards tried to fuck her at BravoCon. Where's Denise on a girls trip?
I feel like they're never going to want to work with Denise Richards again, right? I mean, that's like my sense. I think production really did not like Denise by the end. I guess there's been rumors about her coming back, but it felt to me like production really did not like Denise. I mean, look, Denise is clearly a control freak, and there are clearly narratives that she wants to write that aren't necessarily the true narratives of her life. And I'm not saying this in defense of like what happened to her that season. I mean, that still was kind of ugly and gross and felt sort of dirty, but I don't think that Denise was innocent in all of this. And I don't think Bravo is racing to like be back in bed with Denise, pardon the pun.
Before we move on to Jill, which like I have a lot to say, I want to talk about Taylor. She makes me so uncomfortable. I feel like she was the only one who was totally miscast. Like, I felt like this cast was absolutely perfect, with the exception of Taylor Armstrong. She is clearly a producer puppet. I don't think anything that came out of her mouth was authentically her. Just bringing up the Adrian stuff and just everything, like instigating with Brandi. It was so clear that she was just there to get a check. Like, I do not think they're going to cast her on OC. Like, she might as well have been wearing, like, you know how on The View they wear those, like, in-ears where, like, they're just, like, feeding them lines? Like, I felt like that. She was just, if you had zapped her out of the situation, the show would have been exactly the same.
I mean, again, she's so interesting because I know, obviously, look, she had this very difficult relationship with Russell, and she was a victim of his abuse. And I know that she sees herself as this, well, in the past, she saw herself as this very disempowered victim. There just always seems like such a huge disconnect between the story she writes about who she is versus how she's actually showing up. The rest of the cast, of varying degrees, there does seem to be a certain type of self-awareness to some degree, or a way that they can discuss who they are in relationship in a way that's anchored in some sort of reality. Whereas Taylor just feels like she's got her own story going on in the corner. And if you don't kind of like co-write that story with her, she's just sort of indignant about it. But it doesn't feel like it matches who she is at all.
I think it's so strange that they cast her on this.
What do you think they were going to get from her?
Conflict with Brandi.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, we need to pick people who have had conflict with each other in the past, because they knew, oh, now we can bring up the Adrian stuff with the surrogate, and we can bring up this past Beverly Hills stuff, and like rehashing stuff that happened 10 years ago is useless and boring. Unlike the Dorinda's Jill stuff, which is current and literally just happened. Well, I think it happens like on a day-to-day basis, and is in recent, very, very recent Roni history. Like Leah's first season, they had conflict behind the scenes. I just think Taylor is totally useless.
Even the way that she talks about her current life, I don't trust. I mean, so it's like, you know, the old days of Beverly Hills with Russell was the previous nightmare. Now I have my happy ending. And I just don't trust that it really is her happy ending. You know, I don't trust that this marriage is perfect in the way that she says it is, and that she's completely changed in the way that she says she has. It reminds me of all those rumors that, you know, it's sort of amazing to me that all got lost in the shuffle. But do you remember back in Beverly Hills? I mean, there were all these rumors about her and Russell being these con artists, these grifters. They lied about being part of the Ford family. And she was allegedly a part of that. So I always kind of feel this kind of grifter element with her. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about the abuse she went through. Please, people listening, I'm not questioning the domestic abuse she went through with Russell. I'm just talking about kind of an overall pattern, like, of how she approaches life.
He was a total fraud and owed like millions of dollars, which was part of the reason that contributed heavily to the reason that he committed suicide, because he knew that he was going to get found out and caught and go to prison.
But the rumors were like she was a part of some of his cons and grifts. That she was like changed her name to Taylor Ford and lied about being part of the Ford family. I mean, again, this is rumors, so maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I remember, I mean, much in the same way that there were rumors about Brooks having faked cancer that was in the blogs before he faked cancer in OC, there was stuff being written about from people who had had experiences with them saying like these two are con artists. And so I don't know, it's always kind of in the back of my mind with her too, of just sort of feeling like that's what she feels like to me. It just feels like we're getting something very calculated, and we're getting a narrative that's written that you're asking me to believe that doesn't feel true to me. And I just don't have any sense of who you really are, except for the fact that in whatever situation you're in, you want me to believe you're the victim. Well, you interviewed her. I'm just curious, what was it like to be with her in person?
Well, it wasn't in person.
Well, you know what I mean? Zoom. Like to have an interaction with her.
Well, the interview was like very serious because we talked a lot about Russell's suicide, and like I made her like kind of like walk me through it. I would say I never released the video for it because to me it felt very dark, and I would have had to explain a lot. Like I know that she currently does a lot of voiceover work, and so she was doing the interview like from inside a closet, and like you could barely see her face. And so I don't know if this really answers your question, but it's one of the few interviews that I, with a name that I didn't put out the video because I was like, I can't put this out. Like it just looked too dark. It looked like she was being like hidden away somewhere.
Well, that's kind of what she feels like to me. It feels like when you're with Taylor, that one, you're in this dark presence or in this dark shadow, but then she also feels obscured.
Yeah. There's no there. I don't know who she is, nor do I want to know.
And by the way, I mean, I feel something not totally dissimilar with Phaedra, but at least Phaedra's funny and charming. So, Phaedra like knows how to put on a show that's very likable and seductive. Whereas that's what I'm saying. Taylor's show is me. I'm the victim. Everything else is everyone's fault. And now I'm going to get drunk and like cause trouble, but then I'm still the victim. It's like there's nothing inherently likable about it. Like you're not drawn into Taylor's world in the same way that you're drawn into Phaedra's world.
If we get rid of Taylor, because she literally contributed nothing, who would you have plugged into her slot?
In terms of just any ex-housewife or Beverly Hills?
Doesn't have to be Beverly, anybody.
I mean, when I said Beverly Hills, suddenly I was like, oh, Adrian might be interesting. I always sort of love seeing Adrian around. For some weird reason, and this is totally random, it's a one-season wonder, but Jules from New York popped into my head. I'm always curious about Jules and what she's up to. Actually,
wait, it would have to be a Beverly Hills person because they were doing 2 from each franchise, right? Yeah, they were doing 2 from each franchise. Okay, you say Adrian, I vote Camille.
See, Camille to me is another controlled one who also victimizes herself a lot. She's not fun. Oh, well, there's an obvious choice, which would have brought even more chaos to this situation.
What?
Kim Richards.
Who? No, that would have been too much.
Can you imagine Kim and Dorinda go head to head?
I almost have nothing to say about Phaedra and Eva because they were so perfect. I mean, it's clear that Phaedra is a supporting player. Like she didn't really like offer much about her personal life, but she's a human version of a meme. And so like, that's great. Like she brought the levity.
I mean, I will say I find her a little disturbing for that reason because it's true. She does bring the levity. And like I said, she's incredibly charming and funny. But of course, I'm not forgetting what happened. And just to see her shut it down, to talk about, what she did to Candy. And then again, she's another one where, I mean, again, how much stock do we want to put in rumors? But, there's a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk out there about Phaedra and her criminal dealings. And, you know, I mean, she's another one where, yeah, I feel a little unsafe in her presence. Like, I kind of feel like Phaedra would kill me if she needed to, felt like she needed to or had to. And so it's just interesting to me that there's such a kind of like, it feels like there's such a deep shadow there, but then the face she presents. And again, I want to say, like, I'm saying this as someone who enjoys watching her. Like, she's so likable. She's so funny. And I'm drawn to that split. And it also disturbs me a little bit. And it disturbs me a little bit how quick everyone is just to be like, yes, Phaedra, she's great. And like, I mean, I'm not saying no one's talking about it because I have seen people talk about it. But like, not a lot of people are talking about, you know, the terms on which she left the show. And, you know, that there's more there than Phaedra really wants us to be looking at. What I did find so interesting, though, on Girls Trip was just seeing and feeling her deep connection to spirituality and the fact that I was like, oh, this isn't just a front. I mean, when she read that Bible verse, she was crying and she was moved. And so that was really interesting to me of just like, wow, there is a lot going on in Phaedra. It made me much more curious about who she is. And actually just her story, like how she grew up, like she's a very interesting woman.
Before we jump into Jill, my final thought is that I love the advent of bringing in these male butlers on these girl trips. My question is, do you think Marco, the butler, is an actor?
Yeah, because I went to his Instagram. So I don't know if he's an actor per se, but first of all, he was a last minute replacement. He's not a real butler. Like, this isn't something he does in his life. Someone else was supposed to do it. They had to drop out. He was that person's friend. They hired him last minute. And yeah, he's posting stuff. I mean, he's like posting his Venmo on Instagram, and he seems a little sore about it. Like he's kind of, I guess what he's upset about is when Brandi took off his shirt without his consent. And he's kind of saying, you know, that was a form of harassment. And also, I really wasn't paid very much for this. And so there's stuff on his Instagram about like seeking representation and hoping that he can get, you know, more opportunities from this exposure. So I don't know if he's an actor, but he's definitely got a mind toward wanting some sort of opportunity out of this.
What is his Instagram?
It's Marco Antonio Vega. He had like a whole series of stories where he was answering questions and he was saying, I don't know if it's still up.
Oh my God. Okay. Followed by Jamie Stein. It says right there, he's an actor.
Oh, okay.
He's an MFA.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Actor, writer. Ooh, I need to dig into his.
Not a real butler seeking representation.
Oh my God. Iconic.
He's like a housewife. Wow.
He's a housewife. Okay, I'm doing this as soon as we end recording. I'm really going into that Instagram. Thank you for that.
I'm here to serve.
Stein. You're the only person I'm following who also follows him.
No, I literally like Googled like Marco Berkshire. I was trying to like find out more info about him. So yeah, I had to follow the trail.
I love it. All right. Wow. We got to get into Jill. Where to begin? I mean, listen, I love Jill Zarin. Like, I love Jill. I will always love Jill. I get why other people say she's annoying, but why is that bad? You need somebody who's like kind of annoying.
Well, is it the viewers?
She's not an alcoholic.
Is it the viewers who are saying she's annoying, or is it the women she's filming with who she's saying she's annoying?
The viewers.
Oh, really? I thought people were into her.
I'm hearing some words on the street that people find her annoying. I mean, our very own Laura Marie Shaneholes like hates Jill Zarin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Jill struggles a little bit, and I think this, you know, to your earlier point, is where Vicky excels. I think it's even where Tamara excels. There is a certain vulnerability she'll bring in. I'm not saying she's completely guarded, but I also feel like she's another woman who's pretty controlled in her way. I mean, even, you know, she doesn't drink. I mean, she literally doesn't drink, and she is peddling her products. And I think obviously she's very aware of the TV process. And, you know, we all saw what happened with her and Bethany. There were narratives she was trying to write. So I think where she's a good housewife is in the place like Vicky, where she can't help herself and she wears things on her sleeve even when she's trying not to. Like that part of her that was so hurt that no one wanted to have sex with her. Like, that's the part of Jill that I feel like is kind of likable and dynamic, or at least good television. But I do think that the depths, for example, of the thirst and like where that can take her, again, like the level of spite that she had with Bethany, I think there's a lot that she keeps under wraps. There's only so much vulnerability that she's willing to show on the show. Whereas, again, I feel like women like Vicki and Tamara, they just put it all out there. Love them or hate them. Ramona, it's like they put it all out there. And I think Jill holds back a lot, and I think people feel that. So it's like you're getting kind of the annoying parts of her, but then you don't get enough of the humanity, I think, that would sort of balance out those other parts.
I am receiving what you're saying. Like, it makes sense. Like, I get it. What do you think the motivation was for her wanting to watch Eva record her radio show? Like, do you think there really was any like thirst or malice there, or did she literally just want to support her?
I mean, call me crazy. I mean, to be fair, I have not like dropped into this or anything on a specific level, but I mean, call me crazy. My impression just watching it seemed pretty innocent to me. It seemed like,
me too.
Yeah, a little girl who just was like, oh, I'm excited. Like, you're doing something fun and exciting. I want to hang out and watch.
Yeah, I didn't think there was anything deeper there.
Which is maybe why she got so hurt by Dorinda, labeling it in a certain way, because it really did just seem like an excited young girl who just wanted to kind of hang out and watch Eva do her cool job. And then sort of Dorinda came in with something that was just kind of so kind of cutting and cruel. And then that just leads me to think about Jill's mother, who we experience on the show as, she seems like a very harsh, cutting woman.
I loved the Gloria phone call. Andy and I always say to each other, not happy, mother's not happy. So to see that they brought that in, I was like, oh, Andy must like that too. Because we do that bit a lot. As far as the crux of the Dorinda Jill tension, I really think that this is the classic, we hate in each other the very thing that we hate in ourselves. I think this is a classic. Like, Dorinda is desperate to be back on the show. She hates that she was fired, and she senses that in Jill.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they mirror each other in a lot of ways, right? I mean, they're both widows. Yeah, they were both fired from RHONY. They both definitely have an investment in getting back on the show. So absolutely. And they're both kind of alpha women in a way in terms of like the universe of the show. So, and I mean, if we even want to take it further, they both were fired in a way, in sort of a disgraced way. They both really fell from grace. They both were fan favorites, and then they fell hard, and then they were fired. So no, I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot that they're seeing in each other that's difficult.
When they flashed back to that Halloween scene, so basically they went from that Halloween thing to the Berkshires, and originally Jill was supposed to be part of that trip to the Berkshires, and then Dorinda said, no, I do not want to film with Jill. She flat out blocked Jill from getting more camera time by coming to the Berkshires. At that point, Dorinda was still on the show. So like, why did she have this stick in her craw about Jill at that time? Like, I could never really figure that out.
I mean, I guess if I just feel around a little bit right now, again, not really knowing much about the context. Yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of hearing the words like, no, not on my watch. Yeah, like, this is my show. Like, it just feels a little territorial to me. Just at first, literally, this is me barely going in. It's just kind of like, yeah, this is my home. This is my home now. Like, you don't come in here and lift your leg up. Like,
that is the reason that Jill was cast on this show. Because they knew there would be juicy conflict and that there was all this juicy history between the two of them. Okay, we have to get into Bobby's funeral. Oh, God. Okay, this is where I'm like, oh, boy. Jill denying in the confessional that she called producers. And then the production then calling out being like, well, we have emails. You're like, oh, like, but who are they from? Your old assistant. Well, he's not my assistant anymore. What's the email? Did it come from me? Was I CC'd on it? Like, the denial and then the quick admittance of, well, outside, but not inside. Mm-hmm. Like, why did she deny? Like, why step in shit like that?
Well, because she knows how it looks. She knows how it looks. She knows. I mean, look, again, I don't know. It's not for any of us to judge anyone's grieving process. Obviously, she was caretaking Bobby for a long time, and I know that's a very different situation than someone just suddenly dying. What her motivation or her impulse was in bringing the crew to Bobby's funeral, I don't necessarily know. Again, it's not something that I've like sort of dropped into per se. But I think at the very least, she knows how it looks. Obviously, people are like leveraging these accusations against her. And especially if there was something in her that was even unconsciously, semi-consciously leveraging this funeral as a way to kind of, I mean, what did I say at the beginning? She's always got an angle. Right. I mean, and to be fair, to create a little bit of space for Jill's humanity, I do want to say, I know, like, I don't know sort of what the background is of her lineage, but I know for a lot of people who are closely identified with their Jewish heritage, who have like, ancestors who are Holocaust survivors or who were impacted by the Holocaust, like there is a lot of fear that has come down the lineage around like survival, supporting ourselves, money. And so I don't know what Jill's family background is like. Again, I know Gloria, she seems very severe. So there really might be something in Jill, just even lineage wise, that really is like, we got to have an angle. We got to generate more, more. So, I'm just sort of saying that as a possible reflection of Jill's humanity and all this. But if there was something in her that was like, let me leverage this as an angle into the show, I can imagine she would feel embarrassed about that. And I would imagine that's something she feels like, I've got to cover that. This proves true what everyone's saying about me. So let me just kind of deflect and lie. Now, I will say it is shocking to me how easily she lies. I mean, Jill's lies come so easily to her. I mean, it's a little disturbing, if I'm being honest.
Where else was she caught in a lie?
Weren't there other things that she was lying about? Well, I mean, we've seen her lie on Roni, for sure. Again, I just rewatched season 4. But like just that, I mean, just the way that she was like, no, it didn't happen. Oh yeah, it was on the outside. No, it didn't come from me. We have the emails. Oh, it came from my assistant. I mean, it's just like, she lies.
When she says to Dorinda, when she asks Dorinda to call Bethany to confirm it, I fucking love that. And frankly, thank God she called production. First of all, Bobby was like a patriarchal figure on Roni. Like, I'm glad that we got to see the funeral. Like, she shouldn't be embarrassed about that. Okay, yeah, it's a little cheesy, but thank God we got to see that. Thank God we got the moment with Bethany and Jill. I mean, Bethany, the truth is, but something they didn't say and something she could have said is that Bethany flew back from Aspen specifically so that she could film with Jill.
At the funeral?
Mm-hmm.
You mean she flew back not for the funeral, she flew back to have the moment to film with Jill at the funeral?
Correct.
How do you know that?
I remember at the time Bethany was in Aspen, because why would Bethany fly home from Aspen to be at Bobby Zarin's funeral? They had not been in touch for years. Why would she leave Aspen early to go to Bobby Zarin's funeral if there weren't more stakes? And think about it, Bethany's got the producer hat on.
Mm-hmm.
She knows what she's doing.
Right.
My girl Bethany will get on a plane to create content no matter what.
Well, and also maybe production said to her, we want you to go.
Of course.
That's the thing. I mean, ultimately, they are all playing the game. But then pointing fingers at each other and saying, you're playing the game and you're thirsty and you're this and you're that. And it's like, well, aren't you all kind of in the same matrix?
I mean, when Bethany says we're all alone, we're all alone. Like, thank God she flew back. Thank God Jill called production, even just to hear her say we're all alone. Meanwhile, she's like dating. She got with Paul Vernon like the day after fucking Dennis died. It's just hilarious.
I do wonder, though. I mean, it is interesting to think about what actually was Jill's motivation and, picking up the phone and saying to Bravo, you can come.
this could be a moment. This could be a moment with Bethany. This is going to bring things full circle. We owe it to the audience. The audience loved Bobby.
I mean, that's the other thing, too. She's a busybody, right? So I think Jill's also someone who thrives on a certain level of drama and chaos. So I also think that could also just be a flavor of it. Of, oh, Bobby's, dying. We've got the funeral. Call Bravo. Do this. Do that. It's like she's got that kind of Jewish mother. Like, you can't Energizer Bunny. Like, she's not going to stop, until she's dead.
And I remember the aftermath of that was that Bethany, in fact, went to a shiva call at Jill's apartment, brought Bryn, and they reconnected off camera again. And then Bethany blocked her number.
I love how unhinged Bethany is.
So we all know what it's like to have an acne breakout at an inconvenient or embarrassing time, like right before a job interview, a date. We've all had issues with our skin. So let me tell you about Apostrophe. Apostrophe is a prescription skincare company that offers science-backed oral and topical medications that are clinically proven to help clear acne. At Apostrophe, an expert dermatology team will create a personalized treatment plan that is perfectly tailored to your unique skin. Simply fill out Apostrophe's online quiz about your skin goals and medical history. Then you'll take a few pictures and a board-certified dermatologist will create your initial customized treatment plan. Apostrophe treats all types of acne, from hormonal acne, facial acne, even chest knee, back knee. They treat breakouts from head to toe. I loved that my treatment plan was from a real board-certified dermatologist and that my plan was tailored to my specific needs. The best part is that I didn't have to go to the pharmacy to wait in line to get my medication. It's important for me to have good skin because, let's face it, I'm on video for this podcast on YouTube. So it's important that my skin is looking somewhat presentable for all of you. So here's what. We have a special deal for listeners of Hot Takes and Deep Dives. You can save $15 off your first visit with an Apostrophe provider at apostrophe.com/hot takes when you use the code Hot Takes. And this code is only available to you guys. So to get started, just go to apostrophe.com/hot takes, click begin visit, then use the code Hot Takes and sign up, and you'll get your first visit for only $5. That's apostrophe.com/hot takes and use that code Hot Takes to get your first dermatologist crafted treatment plan for $5. And thank you, Apostrophe, for sponsoring this episode. All of this to say, okay, I think we said it all as far as girls' trip. Now I want to bring it to the fact I think I have reached the point of acceptance that I am actually going to watch OC. Now I have consulted my other OC expert, Mr. Jacques Peterson, and he said that I should watch season 1 and 2, but if I'm not, he said the most he's willing to do is tell me to start at season 3, even though I should start at season 1 and 2 just to see how it was built. But season 3 is when Tamara comes in and I can actually see how Tamara changed the game. And just like he said, just continue there all the way through Kelly Dodd's firing. Do you co-sign that prescription?
I do. I mean, I agree. I think seasons 1 and 2 are kind of vital. One, just from an archaeological perspective of like, this is where the show started. And to really see how it's changed, grown, and evolved. And also in the ways in which it hasn't. I just think like this is the start of everything. And also, part of what's great about OC is that it's really the only franchise where in the early years the kids really played a big role, and there are some amazing storylines in there in the kids in those first few seasons. I think it's the first 2 seasons. Now, having said that, like, I understand OC's not your like franchise that you naturally gravitate to. So yeah, I would say if you're feeling like time resources are limited, or you're feeling like you don't want to bother with the show before it became like what it is. Yeah, season 3, Tamara coming on the scene.
Well, I'll happily watch like an episode from season 2. Actually, that's not true. I have seen the very first episode of OC because I was like curious and I was like, oh my God, this looks like it was shot like with a tin can.
If you can research, like just do a quick Google search of whatever episode, there's this whole subplot called the OC Angels, where some of the daughters, oh my God, it's like the early days of the self-promotion. some of the fathers or the husbands launched this like energy drink line. They were trying to capitalize on the exposure from the show, and they hired their daughters to be the OC angels who were going to like market the drink line. And there's just this amazing storyline where like, where the OC angels there's conflict amongst the OC angels.
If we bring this back to Vicky, I mean, she really, to me, is Valerie Cherish. Like, can't stop watching. Completely, right? Yeah.
That's why I've always loved her. Like, people never understood it. I'm like, no, she's a tragic comic heroine.
Yes.
And
she's a comedian.
She is.
But she doesn't know it.
Well, that's what's great about it. I feel like all the best, I mean, to me, like my favorite housewives, like Vicky, Cheray, Karen, what I love about them is they're both intentionally funny, because I do think Vicky can actually be quite witty, but they're also unintentionally hilarious. And for me, it's the combination of those two things. And in Vicky's case, yeah, the fact that she's so vulnerable, she can't hide anything from the camera even when she tries, but also that she is, and to use a tired phrase, she's also a boss bitch, and there was something about that on OC that was always so kind of cool and refreshing, that she was the one who came into it with a successful insurance business. Guess what? She's still doing her insurance business, and she's still on Instagram, like offering financial advice. So I think for me, there's just I always love that kind of like Midwest stock of like Vicky. Like she's messy, she's emotional, she's vulnerable, she's all over the place. But unlike, say, a Kelly Dodd or a Kelly Ben-Simone or a Dorinda, she's not a raging alcoholic. Like, I don't think there's personality disorders going on there. Like, I don't feel uncomfortable watching her. So I can kind of engage with her and her messiness and her humanity without feeling without feeling guilty or dirty or like concerned for her sanity. Look, she's not perfect by any means. I'm not saying this is someone I want to be my friend. I'm not saying I agree with her political views, like none of that. I just find her to be captivating television.
So from what I understand, Tamra actually was never really the fan favorite. Like, people wanted Tamra gone for quite some time. So I understand them eventually. Are you disagreeing with that?
Oh, no, it's true. She's had such an arc. Yeah.
So I understand why they would fire Tamra. So my question is, why did they fire Vicky?
Oh, I see. This is what happened with Vicky. And, and again, let's just acknowledge 14 seasons this woman gave us. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's crazy to me how much story she generated. But what happened was, I think a huge part of what happened was, there was a whole debacle with Brooks that you've heard about, even if you haven't seen it.
Oh, I'm dying to see that now.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, it's gold.
I am itching to get to the Brooks cancer thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, the more that you watch leading up to it, it pays off, because you understand it in context of Vicky and her quest for love and like how far she's willing to go to hold on to this guy who's such bad news. So what happened was, to Tamara and Brandi's point, even though Brooks was like this shady asshole, like there was something he really lit up in her, and she had sort of access to her wild side. So once Brooks left the picture, her next boyfriend, Steve, who you've heard about, she just went in the total opposite direction. And this was like an older, more conservative, more subdued guy. He held public office. Like, it was just very clear that he was concerned about how things look. And it was very clear that she started to rein herself in. And you could see that, she just wasn't the same Vicky, And then on top of that, her relationship with Steve wasn't very dramatic or exciting. Like, it didn't generate a lot of conflict. So suddenly, she didn't really have a ton of storyline going on. She was sort of held back, energetically on the show. And I think there was a little bit of, people being tired of her. It's like sort of what's she bringing. The casting around her wasn't great. And so I think the show got into a rut. And so it's like the show's in a rut. Vicky's kind of in a rut. And I think there was just a feeling of like, we need new blood. We need fresh energy. It's time for Vicky to go home.
Do you think they're going to bring her back?
I hate to say it. In this moment, I mean, look, things change. In this moment, I feel like it's a no.
Why?
Well, I mean, first of all, they didn't bring her back next season. They're bringing Tamara back. What is this feeling? I think unlike Tamara, like I said before, Tamara's a good employee. Tamara's low maintenance to work with. Tamra also, there's a lot of nostalgia for Tamra. Like, Tamra really became a fan favorite in retrospect. And I think Vicky's more difficult to work with. I think, you're still, again, it's part of what makes her funny. Like, she's obnoxious on Watch What Happens Live in this way that makes you laugh. But, like Teresa, it's also what makes her difficult. And I don't know that there was enough of a response, for example, from Ultimate Girls Trip, of people loving Vicki, that it would behoove Bravo to bring her back. Unless it were like Phaedra people loved. Tamra people are loving. There's an energy and an enthusiasm. And again, there's kind of a perfect storm of bad timing here, which was, Vicki came into this trip having just been dumped. And she wasn't her usual self. And the cast feels that. I guess the audience feels that. So it just doesn't feel, from the point of view of the producers that I'm picking up on, in terms of like where they wanted to go, striking a balance of fresh new energy with like old favorites. Vicki, to me, from that context, she feels still kind of like an albatross around the neck of the franchise. That's the feeling I get in this moment. I don't think they're racing back to her anytime soon. Now, we'll see how this next season goes. Here's where I think it could go well for Vicki. And I had this thought, and Tamara's already spoken to it on Two Teas in a Pod. I had this thought of like, Vicki should film with Tamara. Like, don't be too proud. Like, film with Tamara. And Tamara said it on 2T. She's like, I told Vicki, like, come film with me. So I'll say I think it's open-ended as of now. I don't think they're racing to go back to Vicki.
And I guess my final thought here is, what is your excitement level for Girls Trip 3, which is currently filming in Thailand? We have Leah McSweeney, Heather Gay and Whitney from Salt Lake City, Giselle and Candace from Potomac, Portia Williams, and Alexia and Marisol from Miami. Scale of 1 to 10, how excited are we?
Okay, a 5. Which leaves
how did you land on 5?
Is there anyone in this cast that I'm really excited about? Wait, who's from? It's Candace and Giselle. Yeah, is there anyone from this cast that I'm super excited about seeing? No. Do I look at this cast and even understand what the flavor of it's supposed to be? No. Does this feel like another?
It's supposed to be
dynamic duos.
Who's Portia's dynamic duo?
Well, that's the thing. She replaced Tinsley. It was supposed to be Tinsley and Leah.
Yeah. That I'm disappointed about Tinsley.
Me too. Yeah, does this feel kind of like another situation where they're just throwing a bunch of housewives together to see what's going to happen? Yes. So I'm not like, oh boy, this is going to be great. Am I kind of curious? I mean, look, there are people in this mix that I don't really enjoy watching, like Leah McSweeney, for example. For whatever reason, I never care about Miami. But, am I interested to see what's going on these days with Whitney and Heather? Kind of, because I feel like I've heard murmurings that, like in the social media murmurings that there's a split there. That kind of intrigues me. I'm always intrigued to see Candace. I'm one of the few people who has a soft spot for Candace, especially if she's getting into it with Giselle. So I guess for me, the 5 is my way of saying, I'm not like overly excited, but I'm also open to seeing what it brings. And I'm open to being wrong about not being excited.
Do you think they would do another girls trip set at Bluestone Manor?
Oh, God, I hope not. I don't think so. I think Dorinda really fumbled the ball here.
I don't think they would do it because they could barely come up with activities for them to do this time around. We've seen every fucking old hotel from 1700s. Like, where else are we going?
It was like, claustrophobic. I mean, it sort of felt like that, that last disastrous season of Roni, that COVID season where there's nothing to do. I mean, this worked better because the casting was better, like in the ensemble worked better. But look, we've had 2.5 years now of reality shows in like empty restaurants in people's homes. I'm ready for reality TV to be back outdoors. I want them like going out in public. I don't want them stuck at home. Like let's air it out. I'm done with Bluestone Manor.
Well, you're gonna get it. They're gonna be in Thailand.
I know. I don't know like what's going on in Thailand now, but hopefully they get to go out and be in public and be in the streets of Thailand with people around.
Jamie, thank you so much. You're a delight as always.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
tell everybody where they can follow you online, how they can work with you if they wish to do that, and everything you have going on.
Well, yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram, Jamie Stein, JAMIESTEIN. I tend to have Bravo-related content there. And definitely listen to my podcast, Deep Dive with Jamie Stein, where we take a deep psycho-spiritual look at Bravo, Housewives, TV, pop culture. And then, yeah, if you're curious about my work, head on over to my website, HollywoodReadings.com. You can read more about that there, and you can send me an email if you're interested to learn more.
Everyone, please follow me on Instagram, JessXNYC. You can find videos from past interviews over on YouTube, hot takes and deep dives, throw in my name. And Jamie and I will see you soon.